Welcome back to Creating Joy. Today we are going to be using our Brother 770 embroidery machine to make a snowy owl mug rug. The items that you will need are first the pattern and the digital design. I will have the link in the description for that. You can buy it off of Designs by Juju. And then you need your own fabric for the backing, and there's two parts of the backing. So you'll need two different coordinating fabrics, and that's what my red and green and then the green are my two different ones. You also need a fabric for your owl. I have chosen to do this white fabric on the end to the left because I'm doing a snowy owl, I decided. Then you also need batting, approximately 5 by 7 inches. Of course, you'll need the pattern all printed out and ready to go. So that little pink box, so I got this at Hobby Lobby, and it is a perma-stick tape Pellon, and we'll be using this to finish up the mug rug at the end. The pattern actually has all the different embroidery threads. They are using Floriani, and I have both Floriani and a couple of other brands. And I don't have all of those colors, so I'm using what I have for the applique placement line. Those aren't going to be seen, so it really doesn't matter what color you're going to be using. Now, the other ones, they do matter because really it depends on what color of fabric you're going to be using. So I'm actually getting threads that match my greens, and what I've done is I've looked at my thread, and I've written down the codes for my threads so that I don't get confused about which ones I'm using. So you can see that I have some bigger threads. So I also have a 10 needle embroidery machine over there. So I have quite a few of the larger ones. I don't quite have that color of gray in a smaller thread cone, so I have decided that I'm going to just use my tall thread stand so that I can use that thread with my small machine. So I'm also going to use the taller cone of the tan and the red. So, and of course, you need your trusty embroidery machine, whichever embroidery machine you have. Mine has a 5 by 7 hoop, and that's the size that I'm going to be using here. This design comes in like 5 different sizes, so you could make this even bigger and turn it into a placemat if you had a bigger hoop. So the first thing I always do is I line up my thread so that's all in order, and it's as much in order as it can because there's some that they just repeat over and over again, and that's why it's really good to write down your code numbers so that you don't get confused about which one goes next. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I read through the whole entire pattern, and I suggest you doing that too, reading through the whole entire pattern. I measured my embroidery hoop, and what I figured out is I'm going to cut my fabric 7 inches by 9 inches. And I'm going to cut 3 of those. Okay, so I'm going to go, I have this little crease in this, so I'm going to go run and just iron that out, and I'll be right back. So now I'm going to cut my complementary fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a 5 by 7 also. So I'm actually, for this one, I'm just going to do the width that it is. It's about 7.5, 8 inches, and then 7 down. Because this is the small piece, so I'm definitely not going to need this whole piece. I just don't want to have to use the whole entire piece of fabric. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to turn on the embroidery machine and click the OK. And then we're going to do the USB retrieval. So it's retrieving the pattern. We know the design is the very last one. So I'm going to go ahead and touch it, pick it, and then you do the envelope. So that's pulling it out of the file. Okay, So here it says that on here that there are 19 steps. So because we have the printout, we know what those 19 steps are. Okay. So the very first one it's going to do the batting placement line. So this is when I now need to take my thread that I have in line. This is the first one that I'm going to use for the tack down. And so I'm going to thread it with this. So with thread, you're going to take off this piece right here, put your thread on, then you're going to put the piece right over top to keep your thread in. Then you're going to take it and you're going to go and follow the numbers. There's 1, 2, 3 goes down and up, 4 goes down over to the left and down, and then you're going to floss the tooth. And hopefully it stays in. Okay, and then you're going to thread your needle. So the next part you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and put the presser foot down and the light turned green, and you're going to go ahead and push it. Keep your hands back and let it do its job. So with mine, it doesn't cut it, so you just have to cut it. And then it's ready for number 2. So this is when we take it off. And now we're going to put on our batting. So I'm going to lay my batting right over top of all of it. And this is why I pre-cut it, so that it would be easy to get to it. Okay, now you have to lift up the presser foot to get it back in. And then it is a little tricky to get it back here because it's clear back here now. So you have to push it in a little bit and kind of hold on to this part to put it on. Now, sometimes I'll tape it on the item that I'm doing. It depends how it's going. I'm gonna watch it and kind of just hold it down, but keep my hands away from the needle. Because I'm tacking, I'm just using the same color. If you want to use a different color like they suggest, you can. It just means you have to take it off and put it back on. This isn't going to be seen, so okay, one of the things I forgot to mention is these are applique scissors. They're flat on one side, and it helps you to cut around the applique item. So I'll slide this back a little bit. Put the presser foot up. So I'm just going to trim. I'm going to leave about 1/2 inch around. Okay, so the next part is going to do a line to show, it's a placement line, to show us where to put our next piece of fabric, well, our first piece of fabric. So I'm going to put my foot down and have the placement line drawn out, embroidered out. So now I'm going to put my fabric so it covers both sides. I'm going to try and get the lines straight. Okay, so this is when your thread is going to be seen. And so this is when I'm going to look at my thread chart. This is number 4. And on here, on my chart right here, I put down that I was going to use 376. So looking at this pink, I think the pink would actually blend in with it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead bring up some of my thread and cut it. Okay, and then I take it off. So this is when I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to pull it towards it, and then I'm going to cut right on the line. So just above it with my applique scissors. See how they're flat? It's helping me so I don't cut any of the underneath fabric, okay? So now I need a different thread, and this is the one where I'm going to be doing the gray thread. That is the larger one. I'm going to move my stand over here. I am going to unthread it, make sure my foot is up. So you really want to take it and just unwrap it as carefully as you can so it doesn't get caught on anything. Okay. So with your embroidery thread, most embroidery thread has a piece down at the bottom where you can wrap it around at the bottom. And that makes it so it doesn't come unraveled. So I decided to change out the color of my fabric. I had originally chosen this fabric, and I thought I liked the little designs and stuff, but when looking at it with my thread, it was just too white. So I got a fabric that is more contrasting on one side. It's like whites and grays. I'm actually using the back side of the fabric because the back side has the color that I want for my snowy owl. Okay, this is when we get out our applique scissors again. So this next step, it's going to draw a line or embroider a line for a tack down stitch. This is a tricky step, so I want you to see how this works. And it's not this that the sticky step, it's what we have to do. So the directions don't actually explain it, which is interesting. So I'm going to put my presser foot up. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this piece, it's covering up over top of the line, and it's going to be face down. So I'm going to have both fabrics. If this was a colored, a patterned piece of fabric, the right sides would be together. And that's going to draw a line back over top of it, or an embroider line. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fabric and put my presser foot up, and then pull it underneath carefully, and then make sure it's covering this fabric right here. And then I'm going to finger press across using my thumbnail or whatever. Some people have a tool that can actually push it down and make a nice crease along here. Okay, and now we're going to put the foot down, and it's going to, okay, I see some of my fabric is curled under. It's best to look twice, right? Sew once. Okay, so that is done. So now the next thing is the design that it's going to make. So I think I'm going to do a brown for the design. Okay, so you can see that, maybe you can't see, but so the thread to begin with was really long, and so you can just pull it off as you go. A lot of times in the designs it'll just sew it in, and so it actually looks like it's part of the design. so I leave it a lot of times. But then there's other times that I'll take the time to stop my machine and cut it. The next step we're doing is we're taking our other two pieces of fabric that we cut earlier, and we are going to fold them right in half and press them. So next we're going to press our foot up, and then we're going to take our fabric and make sure that it is covering where the line is. Okay, and then we're going to bring the other one, the folded part of both of them are in the middle. And again, we are making sure it's covering. This particular fabric has a design, so I'm trying to line it up and make sure it's straight. Okay, so the whole goal is to make sure it overlaps. Okay, we'll put the presser foot down and sew. And I always want to watch this to make sure that it doesn't come up on the edges. Okay, so we're all done with the embroidering. Now we're going to take it and trim it up and turn it out. Okay, let's take it, we'll undo our embroidery hoop. Once it gets to a point, then it's loose enough and you can just use your hands and take it out. Okay, we're going to set aside the hoop and then go ahead and use our rotary cutter. So this is when I'm putting the line, mine has 1/4 inch, so I'm going to put the line right on top of my embroidery, my last one, and I'm going to trim it 1/4 inch. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a diagonal on the corners. On this particular ruler, I have a little line right here, and that's the line that I use. I put it right on the point of the corner, and that makes sure that I'm not going to cut off my corner. I don't want to cut my embroidery thread. So this helps to make the points to stick out better. On this opening right here, so this is where you're going to now take it and poke it out. If you have a chopstick or something like that, then you can poke out the corners, or even a pin. Next we're going to iron it down, and then we're going to use our perma stick and put it right in here and iron it down for 30 seconds. This is my perma press, so I'm going to go ahead and line it up inside with the paper facing up. I want to get as close to the edge without it coming out. Okay, so now you have to hold it for 30 seconds. I do have to move my machine every once in a while, my iron, otherwise it times out and turns off. So I'm going to let it cool for just a second because it's super hot. Okay, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to try and get just the very edge of it. I'm going to make sure that the white, the clear glue stuff stays down while I take it off. Okay, good. So it all stayed on. So now I'm going to lay it flat and I'm going to do the same thing. So the trick with this, I've learned from doing this a couple of times, is just leaving it. I'm going to hold it down a little bit on top because you want it to cool. Once it cools, that's when it is sealed together. So don't try lifting it up right now. It's not going to be glued right now. It needs to cool. So it is all done. That's not too bad for our first little mug rug. So you can examine the way it turned out and learn from it and change out the colors of the owl and the leaves, everything. You could totally make this look totally different. Thanks for joining me this week making a mug rug on my brother's 770, and I hope you're going to have fun with your brother's 770 and make lots of fun things.